I think for years now, and this is pre-AI, we've been talking about robots and technology being part of the workplace, and maybe the role of the HR leader turning away from just looking after people and humans into the workplace and actually looking after everything and everyone that delivers value to the organization. We still have like other technologies of like VR and AR and other bits being integrated into our workplaces and ways of working. And I think that the way we should cast our vision is how all of these things that are advancing technologies coming into our workplace, and how our roles evolving rather than being replaced.
Chip, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. Spring has finally arrived.
Has it?
Sort of.
Did you come with a jacket today?
Yes.
I'm about to say, don't tell me you came out like that, because it is not that warm as well. Nice to see you in person. Again. Saw you for the first time last week, and now you're stuck with me.
Yeah.
As well.
Match. Good.
But who knew that we live 10 minutes away from each other?
Yep.
I didn't know that. So you basically been avoiding me this entire time. You knew, although, did you know where we were based?
Before, yes.
So you was avoiding
previous
me. It's fine, I forgive you. You're here now. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about your background and sort of the journey to where we are now at Entain.
Perfect. So how far can I go? Grew up in Romania, and that's part of sort of my career choices. Started moving more into technology. So I've started a degree in computer programming and IT. During that degree, sort of started volunteering and working with different organizations, and just fell in love with HR. Decided to drop that degree and move most of my career. You can't just skip
over that. How did you fall in love with HR? You was exposed to it in one of the companies?
Yes. So I was working with a student organization that had like strong partnerships with the likes of Unilever or DHL or sort of different global organizations. Very much around how do we develop the leadership of the future. So we were actually in Romania, we were the group exposed to quite advanced HR, talking about balanced scorecard and how we're applying that in the context of HR. And this was like 1990s, early 2000s, so about 25 years ago, of understanding sort of the roadmap for HR quite early on. And I just love IT and technology, but this sounds significantly more intriguing of making organizations better for
How did
everyone.
your parents take that decision?
But boy, they take most of my decisions.
Like, wait a minute, you want to go from
independent and running my own ship, and sort of shifted the direction into doing HR and started doing a bit more of sort of talent management and different type of programs. Then went through the global economical crisis that moved me surprisingly into operations.
Wait, like the 2008 period,
Because I found myself sort of interviewing for HR roles alongside ex-HR directors and CHROs that lost their jobs.
Oh my God.
And I was like, it's literally a talent manager role. I'm fighting with the CHRO for the same role. So I'm going to go into business operations, spent a bit of time in business operations, and then decided that I want to come to the UK to get a bit more the meat of HR and get a bit more evolution of the HR roadmap. Came into the UK 2012, lost track of time. And since then, been involved with CAPD and a lot of other communities of work, sort of getting to actually the bare bones of HR and how do we drive that roadmap. Done a bit of consulting as part of my journey, as you do. Just building that portfolio of these are the type of skills and capabilities that I want to bring in my personal portfolio as well. And now I am in sort of different organizations at the moment at Entain, looking after the HR transformation roadmap, the digital HR transformation strategy, and recently absorbed people analytics into my remit as well, just connecting the three together to make sure that we're designing and delivering some wonderful people experiences for 30,000 people.
Amazing. So you kind of like interestingly come full circle back to the technical data.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call myself like a programmer or.
No, but I mean in terms of you're now being able to combine both, whereas earlier in your career you felt like you had to choose one or the other, and obviously people analytics didn't even exist back then. I don't think you even had HR analytics back then. Nope. You know, that long ago, right? As well. So it's pretty cool that's kind of come full circle, and you.
And I'm mindful of I don't look that old, but when we were doing computer programming training and courses, we were literally writing C++ code on the whiteboard.
Oh my God, so, that long ago. Now you're aging yourself. I've been doing it for 20 years. You've got 5 years more on me as well. Tell everyone quickly a bit about Entain, because most people in the UK, for example, they know all the brands, but they perhaps may not know Entain. So,
so Entain is one of the leading groups dealing with betting, gambling, and entertainment. So if you're from the UK, you'll probably recognize some of our brands like Coral, Ladbrokes, or Calabingo, or a lot of these. We do have significant population in our organization that is in retail shops. So as you would recognize some of those brands, but part of like more than half of the people employed by Entain deal with digital products as well. So a lot of games and apps and sort of digital footprint that we have across 42 different countries.
Yeah, super interesting. So you've obviously just absorbed people analytics. I love the fact that you have those 3 areas, because like you said, it gives a great advantage of understanding the entire employee experience. Typically that's set in different silos in the company, which will become a challenge as well. Talk me through kind of what's really sort of top of mind for you right now.
I think that Entain, probably not very dissimilar for other organizations, has grown significantly through mergers and acquisitions. And a few years back, it was very much positioned as a holding organization, enabling these different brands and organizations with a lot of MDs and CEOs to run the business and generate profit. For the past few years, with the rebranding and the repositioning of the organization, we're converting more and more into a global enterprise. So that comes with people working across functions, bringing down some of those silos, and trying to understand what is the one unique experience that we're providing for all Entainers across the organization, rather than if you're working in Italy, you have a completely different experience than UK versus Ireland or other elements. So there's a drive, one from the business and the business leadership, of how do we turn the organization into a one organization rather than cousins and brothers holding hands. And then secondly, from the HR perspective, we have a very clear strategy of unifying our experience and enabling people to deliver value regardless where they are in the world.
Yeah, I love that. So that's sort of the why, which is great. In terms of the how is that driving your HR tech choices in terms of how you look at solving those problems and creating that that experience?
And we've started with that, the why, because that's almost like the driver of everything that we want to deliver, and we're designing the experiences first before we look at how is technology enabling that. And we've made that decision quite intentional of technology is not driving us, technology is an enabler for what we wanted to deliver in the organization. But we've done this exercise maybe about 3 years ago when I joined the organization, on looking at all of the tools, technologies, licenses that we'd be using across the group in the HR function. So not necessarily just HR tech. So we've looked at whiteboards and collaboration tools and everything else, on like a quick scan and a rapid prototype of understanding that we've identified about 180 technology and tools.
That's a lot.
And that's about 100 or 120 too many that we should be using as an organization. And that was very much because we weren't a one organization. We were 38 different organizations. And
then they will have all their own different systems.
And everyone came with their own separate HR system, own separate cost. We've had like multiple licenses for the same collaboration tools because they came out as different populations. So we've looked at one, how do we harmonize and drive consistency across all of that? We're about 75% on that journey. So we've picked up one, what is our workplace technology? What is our HR and finance technology? And then what's going to be like the enabler and the experience layer on top of that as 3 core technologies. We have.
Can you share those after? I'll let you end, because I know everyone listening to you like, what are they? Why did you choose them?
Yeah.
As well.
And all of these are public, so I'm not sharing secrets of the organization, but we've chosen Oracle, ServiceNow, and Microsoft as being the core 3 technologies that will have consistently in the organization. And this is for our use internally rather than our products being sold to and being used in the market. And across those 3 technologies, we'll only make deviation from those principles only if across those 3 functionalities, everything that we need from a business fails with a significant percentage of mismatch. So I think a good example is based on the complexity of our business and having retail and non-retail and different type of roles and expertise that we required. We found some limitations in Oracle Recruitment Cloud. So we went with Smart Recruiters that plugs and plays with Oracle as
but you're only choosing others that will plug in. That's one of the other considerations. If you don't play nicely with those 3, then
then
you're off the
there's
list.
no point.
Basically.
And we've done that analysis of how much time and effort and money we will have to spend if things don't integrate appropriately, if these systems can't communicate and understand the data and the transfer of information. And thirdly, where would be the type of functionality that we might be having a compromise to make sure that we're consistent around our decisions. So we're slowly decommissioning a lot of the other technologies.
Why Oracle?
We've already had it in the business across 4 or 5 different countries, and it was heavily used in finance. So we've done a bit of assessment of, we were at that time probably 24,000, we're now 30,000, just over in less than 3 years. And we said with our ambition of growth and everything else, there's no other smaller technology that we will consider. So we were limited on almost like a pack of 3, either SAP, Oracle, or Workday. And we've looked at what are the type of things that are important to us as an organization. So whether it's workflows, experience, UI, or the type of database. And we've made a decision that Oracle is the right positioning for us, or from all of those reasons of integration into finance, data architecture, and what we actually want from that technology.
It's an interesting one because like it's an ongoing conversation as well. I feel like ServiceNow have kind of just come out of the blue. Not out of the blue, but I mean, every company
ramping up.
Every company I speak to now, it's like ServiceNow, like it's almost like a no-brainer. And even the vast majority of CHROs I'm speaking to are also turning on ServiceNow's agent as sort of the agent of choice, as everyone sort of battles to be. How long have you had that in place?
We've had ServiceNow in the organization for quite a few years now. We've started with it being in IT, as probably most listeners would recognize that that's being the IT ticketing platform. We've brought it in HR probably in 2018, 19.
What's the use case, main use case?
So we've looked at how does this become outside of just IT technology and becomes an enterprise technology for support. We, for example, had conversations across the organization of GBS and sort of what should be the roadmap of the organization. We're nowhere there in making any decisions, and we're still building that roadmap. But we said for employees, opening up a platform that provides them with support. They don't care if it's IT, HR, finance, or anything else. They had an issue, they've reached out to someone and it's being resolved. And from our perspective, looking at how do we bring down silos and we work together. So if you're part of onboarding, you will get facilities, IT, HR, finance, all of those teams involved. How do we do that in one technology?
All those systems are connecting into ServiceNow, so there's one consistent experience.
And all of them are supporting employees through ServiceNow. So as you have a consistent journey, and then you have allocation across different teams coming together to deliver seamless experience, rather than having the almost like the API integrations where Oracle will send a notification into the finance system and a separate notification into your IT system and a separate notification, just waiting for those pulls to come back.
Amazing.
So it allows us to like think experiences, integration, and ways of working completely differently than having separate technologies that just need to adjust the data that they transfer between themselves.
And it is Teams more from just a communication point of view, or are you deeper in that relationship?
In Microsoft, so we use a lot of the Microsoft tools internally, from Teams to project management to
using things like Viva.
Yep, we use parts of Viva. We use Glint now. That is part of
company.
Microsoft.
Was acquired. Yeah.
Yep, and we're looking at what is the architecture and the support in there, and probably as most
can Glint link back with ServiceNow to get the sentiment analysis from people's questions in ServiceNow? Sorry, really random question. But if you were asking questions in ServiceNow, can you collect that data in Glint?
And not as seamlessly as
not yet. Okay, do that. I mean, that would be really interesting. Yeah. Sorry, I just came to mind. I was like, that'd be super cool.
But now they've connected it into Copilot, and
so you can get it there from
and they've started building a bit more functionality, which is potentially going to be quite an exciting journey for Glint as a sub-product of Microsoft as well, of understanding sort of the advancements of sentiment analysis, and actually how do you go from insight into action. So any type of prescriptive or sort of guidance for not just business leaders, but line managers of what they should be doing.
And in reality, then you'd also have real-time data. How do you balance that with privacy, though? Because of people's conversations, and obviously they're using the Teams ecosystem.
Right? And there's a mix of legislation that is sort of tightening around consent and explicit requirements. I think Glint and the way we're using our technologies, we're always mindful of that. So we have a bit of like a working group that is tied into my transformation to make sure that I have cybersecurity, data privacy, our new AI task force plugged in that to understand so almost like how we're evolving. We still have finance, procurement, and legal as part of those, to make sure that whatever we're going with, one, we're not going too fast, and we're almost like reducing some of the protections that we should have as an organization and for our employees. Secondly, the way we're looking at privacy and controls is we're always taking into consideration of not going too much into employee monitoring and making sure that we're explicit about how we're going to use that information, even if all of our Glint, whatever you'll have to submit any responses, it's like clear statements of how we're going to collect it, how we're going to monitor it. Glint already provides us with some thresholds of anonymization and confidentiality. We went a bit higher than that because we said our appetite for risk as we're playing with these technologies is going to be a bit stricter. So I think the threshold for Glint to anonymize data is 5 for responses. We went 7. And we said, actually, we're confident with that. If in the future we're going to feel going back to their recommendations, we will. But we wanted to make sure that, one, as we're gathering more data and we're making sense of the organization, there's no opportunity for us to get a bit too excited on how we're going to use that information.
Yeah. Where are you looking at? We mentioned all of the. Thank you first of all for sharing that, because I think the audience is really interesting as everyone's on that journey. As well. How are you looking at which of, because each of those platforms has their own agent, right? And everyone's trying to be sort of the master agent. How are you looking at that? Have you chosen, like, because you could launch the Oracle agent, the ServiceNow agent, the Copilot, for example.
And I think that comes down to we're doing a bit of refinement on digital HR strategy and journey at the moment. So we're going to hopefully relaunch that in the next 2 months to the business. But we've taken the decision of, one, the way we're choosing technologies needs to be unified and enterprise-wise. So we're not necessarily picking technology that is only localized and functionality, and that makes us have improve. I was going to say have clean data, but improve our accuracy and consistency of data globally. to be able to amplify any of these type of agents. We went from some parts of our business feeling very much of a startup vibes. So a year and a half ago, people would actually enjoy queuing up outside of an HR office to talk to an HR person. We've made an informed decision that based on the change that we're driving in the organization, and we've already introduced like ServiceNow and Oracle across some of these technologies, where people already feel that there's technology between them and HR, that we're not going to go with any of the agents yet. So we've only turned up on like agent chat, which you're actually talking to a person rather than the AI. And we're doing a few tests to understand our readiness for using AI and chatbot. Between the three of them, so we're currently sort of testing and doing some pilots with Copilot to understand what that would look like. We still have on our roadmap and conversations separately with Oracle what that would look like being integrated across platform. And there's some simple wins in there of would we allow the generative AI to help people structure and write their goals a bit better, which is like a no-brainer.
Small use cases you can start with that are less. There's less risk.
Yep. And then there's some advanced ones that what we're looking at that you mentioned in ServiceNow that will do like cross-platform automation and triggers. So we're not yet making a decision, and we're doing that quite intentionally. We're looking at what are the different type of case studies and how far do we want to get through it. And I think that's back to my initial element of that technology is an enabler.
I love the fact you brought it all the way back, because you can get lost in that, but if you use that as a foundation of leading with that first, rather than the technology, it helps make it very clear decisions. Otherwise you could just get lost in the sea of technologies and integrations and everything else.
And a lot of organizations will position this if they want to retain some of the human side rather than
human in the loop
everything. We're looking at it from the perspective of where does it actually add significant value. So if people still consider that the human touch in specific moments of their experience is valuable, that is where we'll retain it, where humans do the best work. But anything else that will actually amplify and support people into making faster decisions, get the reports they want, get the dashboards, all of those different elements without having to wait for like 3 days SLA, could we potentially look at expediting, improving, and adding AI functionality in?
Yeah. Sorry, we missed one thing, people analytics.
Oh.
Where does that sit within the ecosystem? What's technology, tools?
And so we're using Power BI at the moment with a lot of the advanced functionality part of Microsoft. And in the next few months, we'll be moving to Oracle Fusion Data Intelligence.
Okay.
That will allow us not just to almost like the way we're structuring our data and are able to report on it. FDA will take it to the next level. Sorry. Fusion Data Intelligence is FDA.
There's so many names as well, and they're always changing.
Yep. And so we're starting that journey now, and we're already started doing workshops and understanding almost like what's the roadmap of reporting, analytics, insights, predictions that we would want to offer from the team. We have gone through a bit of repositioning and restructuring of the team and the function to begin with. But we're trying to move away from just reports and more into insights and analytics for business leaders as well.
Yeah.
FDA is quite nice because you have like data pools in there that you're pulling from multiple different systems, and you can automate how it makes sense of all of that data and how you can report regardless of you have Smart Recruiters as ATS and Oracle as an HCM and talent and compensation and ServiceNow as transactions, pull all of that information to give you an understanding of what's happening in the HR function, and then how do you amplify that for business leaders.
Yeah. Super interesting. What you're pretty far down the line than most people that I'm chatting to. What advice would you give to people listening that are perhaps earlier on the journey and that are now taking this opportunity, like many people are, to reassess their HR tech stack?
I think of a lot of time we get bamboozled, if I can use that word, by almost like the opportunities out there and the hundreds and hundreds of technologies and hundreds of emails that you'll probably get from different vendors on the possibilities of technologies out there. Just think of what is right for your organization. So if you want to be a bit more agile as a startup, then you probably benefit from having more type of flexibility from a technology that can shift overnight and you can drive new innovation. If you're trying to drive stability in your business strategy, what are type of technology that enable you to do that? So you can go like different models of best in class, or you can go enterprise technology, the way we've done it, where we still have the experience layer. So we're not necessarily limiting our understanding of just stuck into those technologies. And you can do like a hybrid of different models as part of that decision.
Yeah.
The point is like do a bit of shopping and see as many products as you want, because a lot of them will even be inspiration for the future rather than stuff that you need to buy. And the other thing of coming from I was going to say the dark side of being on the consulting side as well is always take some of these things with a grain of salt. So you've seen the AI tag attached to all possible tools and technologies.
Yeah.
Try to understand like how does it work, what does it deliver. Can you actually have some case studies from organizations that have used that? You will get in a lot of your experience of that sales pitch sounds significantly more polished than what the tool can actually deliver, and some of the limitations that you're going to face through that.
Love that. Do you I know you've got a great network. Do you tap into your network a lot to just reach out to your colleagues that are already using the tools and technologies?
Yeah. And we've done that like recently for FDI when we were in the process of understanding whether that's the right technology for us from Oracle. We've had some reference calls. We've spoken to like different people that were playing with it and trying to understand how it adds value to them. And we've done that not just with Oracle FDI, but with all of the other technologies that we're looking at too. And
you'll be surprised, for anyone listening, like you'll be surprised how receptive your peers are. Because I get some people say, "Oh, Chris, I don't know anyone." Just reach out to people. Yeah. Ask for, and you'll be surprised how many peers who like message on LinkedIn. Yeah. They'll reply. They would want to share their experience and have a conversation as well.
And a lot of vendors will come with their preferred references.
No, exactly. That's what I was about to say. You don't always take just the preferred ones. Like ask, you can see on their websites a lot of these vendors of their companies. Just reach out to those people on LinkedIn and just ask for their advice.
And like don't stick to like traditional questions that you would want to ask these people that you're talking to. Think of what are the battle scars that they've had that they will want to share with you. Of in what, like we had questions of like how clean was their data as they integrated it. Was it a limitation of the fact that they've grown through mergers and acquisitions and the data was not yet aligned? Did they use the actual tool to drive their data cleanup and architecture, or did they just use it for reporting? So we had like very targeted questions around what is our business case of how would we benefit from using this tool, rather than does it work, what are the challenges, and like would you rate it from 1 to 10 or whatever you normally get into a reference call. Yeah,
and a lot of that stuff you're not going to get from hearing from the vendor. They're not going to tell you the battle scars.
Yeah, and some of the tough questions we've asked was like, how was the vendor in supporting you in this journey? How fast do they respond? What were the challenges that you faced in interacting with the vendor? Because we were also interested in of the support model as well.
Well, you know what's going to happen now? Everyone's going to be calling you. After the show. We missed one piece, sorry, like the learning side. So from how are you bringing learning into that? Like, do you have an LXP or an LMS?
Yep, so we still have Oracle Learn. And then in it, we're plugging in any other sort of learning providers. We're halfway through that journey. I think last year we've done like a redesign and corrections into our Oracle Learn. And this year we're sort of amplifying that journey. Yeah.
But I love the fact, to your point, you're like, it has to be part of this ecosystem. Yeah. Because there's a temptation to go elsewhere, right? Yeah. Was that similar around the choice around the people analytics piece, rather than going with like a Visier? Yeah. For example, you're like, well, we're leveraging what we already have. Yeah.
And there's great tools out there.
Yeah, there are amazing. Yeah.
Like we've looked at what is the right one for what we're trying to achieve. So business leaders being able to go into a one portal, press 2 buttons and get the information that they need, without getting too sort of conversational and too AI focused, because One, that there's a reluctance, especially from business leaders, on trusting AI, especially as every statement comes with, this message has been generated by AI and might be incorrect. Not necessarily helping with sort of, especially when it comes to people data, not necessarily helping with the accuracy of that. So we've been looking at how do we build some of the great foundations in there to be able to evolve our journey. But we've also been sort of intentional around sort of the additional elements that we're building in. And while we haven't necessarily deployed some of the advanced elements that we would want to bring into the organization, everything decisions that we're making now are for the 5-10 years roadmap. So we've had conversations about our talent and skills and how that will amplify the organization, and how in the future we would want to do strategic workforce planning that is informed by actual talent marketplace out there to give us an indication of where skills exist and how skills evolve from one specific skills into the other. And we've been looking at, if we want that in a few years' time, what are some of the brilliant basic foundations that we're building now? And we've had conversations about Oracle Learn, for example, being able to understand from all of the plugins what is the architecture and taxonomy of skills, and translate them between Oracle Learn and the other technologies. So if we're calling it project management in Oracle Learn, then if it's LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or anything else, they'll use their taxonomy, but it's going to have clear translation between the two technologies.
That's really, that's super interesting. That's a big challenge for everyone right now.
Especially as skills is evolving so fast. So it feels almost like as soon as you've mapped something, it's already evolved.
It's already out. By the time you've done that, it's like already out of date.
Yep.
One of my questions actually was going to ask you, like, is skills-based hiring, real transformation or just another buzzword?
I think that depends on how you look at it, and if you think of the conversations and the trends you've seen in the market, even pre-COVID, we were having conversations about skills-based pay.
Yes.
And we were looking at how different skills how pay will be consolidated out of the different skills that you bring to the organization, and the utilization of those skills. I'm mindful of COVID and everything else has sort of shifted that conversation a bit to the right, but that's still it's coming. And I think that what we've seen with AI and technology advancements is getting us closer to that of recognizing people's skills in the organization. My perspective is, yes, I think some organizations do it better than others, and some technologies do it better than others in understanding that. And not just how you source the skills and you bring them into the organization, but also how do you activate them and you actually put them to good use. So if you have like a talent marketplace, how intelligent are you using that to break down the skills and position them to the key projects that add significant value to the business? So how are you connecting some of those initiatives into business value rather than just gigs and passion projects?
Sure, yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, how can HR balance the power of analytics with employee trust? We covered it a little bit earlier, but...
Yes, and I think back of what are you trying to get out of analytics? Like, we will never breach people's trust just to get data on the back of it. And we've looked at almost like the different mechanisms of how do we do employee listening. And there's some amazing advanced tools out there that do ecosystem listening. So to pick up surveys and prompts, and how do you comment and post on the intranet, for example, or all of your comments and your likes and everything else in Viva Engage as a platform. Brilliant tools. We said that's a bit too intrusive for where we are at the moment with our organization. So that's not something that we would want to tag. Plus, that gives us a lot of information that at the moment is not useful for us, because we're building a lot of the basics. That feels like something that we might need 5-8 years from now to understand almost like people's behavior, and if we identify almost like dips in engagement or dips in sort of narrative or almost like a conversational insight, how would we act on it?
Or predicting burnout, because you can see people's using overworking. Yeah.
And there's like different elements of that. Of one is like voice sentiment analysis. Secondly is like work pattern and understanding type of different shifts of work and people being connected and engaged. We've seen enough stories from the market of like over monitoring or people using camera on your laptop to see how, if you're still next to your computer or if you've been typing or moving your mouse or anything else.
It's still happening as well. It blows my mind that that's still a thing.
And I think that's the intentional rationale. And as HR leaders, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're steering the organization in the right direction when it comes to some of these things.
That's the quickest way to lose trust.
Yeah. And it's like an easy way to what I mentioned earlier. You're getting a bit too excited by things, and you're almost like breaching into the side that will harm the organization on a long journey.
Yeah, that's tough. It must be tough for you in the team though, right? Because it's like it's tempting to be chased a new shiny object, but to stay grounded and say, okay, this is interesting, but not right now.
Yeah, and we're sort of building that across the wider HR function as well. Of some of these things are so exciting to get to, but what are the right foundations that we need? Like what are the steps that we need to build to get there? Things like we do have a job architecture. It does need refresh for us to be able to trigger some other elements of how we realign business partners and business units and salary benchmarking and informed incentives and attach skills to that. But we're like, that's like 8 projects assigned to them was the fastest critical path that we can take in there without breaking the organization and driving change fatigue.
Yeah, and again, making sure you keep that employee experience front of mind always. I'm wondering, like, given the pace of transformation and change in the sort of the era of AI, how has this changed the skills and competencies that are required within your HR function and the team to drive this? Because it's a very different set of skills and competencies and it's evolving very fast.
And it's quite an interesting one, because I think it gets a lot of people anxious across the HR function. And if you think about us, we're probably about 300 and a bit people in the full HR function. In my team that just deals with leading the HR transformation and shaping it. We have 28 at the moment, so quite like a narrow team, just focus on how do we shape and drive the business. But when we get on significant projects, it does feel like a lot of the 300 population gets involved. We either being an SME, being on project calls, supporting us in shaping and delivering that. So we've had to shift a lot into like stakeholder management and translating what is happening in people's heads rather than just what they verbalize as well. So a lot of the consulting skills that have been useful of getting them into our portfolio, not just for myself but for parts of my team. We've been looking at technology and technology advancements, and there's a bit of navigating the exciting new product versus brilliant foundations in technology, and how do we drive a lot of the security and controls and making sure we're setting ourselves up for success rather than putting the organization at risk. Analytics is changing, and I think that the whole team gone through a bit of restructure and realignment of skills to understand that in the past we would have been very much focused around like delivering reports and lists to the organization. Now we're like talking about storytelling with data, and we're talking about like advanced analytics and driving predictions and prescriptions for the organization. So like an interesting example would be if we're looking at changing one of our offices in a different country, would we be able to use like people's travel distance to come into the office to identify like what's the hotspot of easy commute for them? Would we be able to use like heat maps to understand like preferences of people, of what's around the office and how they gather that? So we started going a bit more into that space with analytics rather than sort of lists and sort of reports, and anything that we can automate or we can allow people to self-serve without putting any data at risk. I have to say that, without putting any data at risk. We're providing that level of access with the right controls.
It's so interesting because you would think that given the pace of change and AI, etc., that it would be speaking about a lot of technical skills, but it's the opposite.
Yep.
A lot of what you described are not. As the technology improves, it's the power skills that become even more important. The first thing you said was storytelling with data.
Yeah.
Right.
And technical skills are still important today.
Of course.
They'll be even less relevant a few years from now, because even the way we're interacting with AI and conversational AI, and that's not technical skills.
No.
That the way we're talking about it. And you see a lot of technology shifting from like hard code, difficult programming into no code and drop down, and actually you're talking to AI and AI is writing the code for you.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, is there more of a value of understanding the business and what we're solving for, as opposed to the how you do it, because that's going to become easier. Like no one talks about prompt engineering anymore, because the AI has got so good you don't even need to write a prompt anymore, because it's advanced so much. So all of a sudden you can just, now with the new ChatGPT, you just ask a question and it's so good that you don't have to write a really great predefined prompt. And be able to do that.
And it's that the interesting part is we're starting to feel more like we're like an innovation hub, and we're testing and prototyping different tools before we deploy them to the organization, all within like a contained, safe environment. Yes. And like and a sandbox could be very much dedicated on the technology, but now we're saying with how do we use multiple technologies and multiple tools and like different business challenges that we'll want to do that. And I think a funny thing that I was talking to one of my managers in the analytics world was, how do we shift the narrative across that team of, let's pose some questions and some challenges that they've never heard before, that we are expecting that they will come from our business leaders in 2, 3, 4 years time.
Well, into the AI?
No, into our team.
Oh, into the team, okay.
To understand how is a team starting to navigate some of those complex challenges.
Okay, interesting. To get their feedback and see where their head's at.
And sort of test that. Because if we're getting ourselves quite ready for that, is how do we nudge the technology to support us to answer those questions?
What's there's kind of, I'm seeing like within my network and also even on LinkedIn, there's like this sort of two views. One's like a really positive, exciting future, and others this sort of dystopian future of AIs replacing us all, etc.
Hopefully.
What's your views on?
Hopefully, if AI can do my job and I can still get paid and travel the world and do whatever I want.
What's your views on this?
I think there's two elements in here. Of you do hear a lot of people of how much in control we are as HR leaders to be able to shift the direction. Slightly disagree that we're in that much control. I think the advancements in technologies and AI and everything else that is coming down that path have already passed our ability to adopt them into organizations, so they'll always be ahead of our organizations. So everyone is playing catch up rather than planning on some of these things. Our ability to predict some of those things has been shrunk down significantly, and we're now model 8 or 9 in ChatGPT alone since it was launched. So different prototyping and narrative, and now it does like deep research and reasoning, and you can build your own bots and you can give them different tasks, and now they're moving into delivering tasks and notifications and research for you rather than just conversational and generative. And that's what
we're moving to the era of like, which some people are calling large action models rather than large language models. You're already seeing it. I updated my MacBook yesterday, by the way, and it showed me that ChatGPT is now integrated with Siri, and then I just chat with Siri, and it's ChatGPT, and I asked it to write a template, and then I said send that to Shane, and it automatically connected to my Gmail. Sent the email to Shane, and I did that all without touching my computer, and I was like, oh my god, I just wrote the whole email. It knew Shane's a contact in my Gmail, send it to him. So now it's starting to move towards actions. It connected to my calendar. I could book a hotel, I could book a flight without even touching it.
And is that element of, we're calling it like orchestration and large module orchestration, and not just one GPT doing all of that.
It's going to be
one
loads.
GPT instructing multiple GPTs to do that. I think for years now, and this is pre-AI, we've been talking about robots and technology being part of the workplace, and maybe the role of the HR leader turning away from just looking after people and humans into the workplace and actually looking after everything and everyone that delivers value to the organization, almost like resource as a whole. I think even if you cast your mind back of 10 years ago, we were talking about like robots being in the workplace and HR looking after them and making sure that they're happy and
so this is almost the same now, but they're just digital.
And I think the mindset of what AI has done is it's like forcing us to have this circular view of just AI rather than robots are still here and they're doing a lot of wonderful, amazing things in automation of warehouses and running parts of our world. Now we have AI and generative and conversational AI and advancements that we've just spoken about. We still have like other technologies of like VR and AR and other bits being integrated into our into our workplaces and ways of working. We'll have like Neuralink or other bits integrated in. So
it's already happened.
We'll be start seeing, and you've seen like implants and sort of robotic arms and everything else attached to humans. So we're almost like cyborgs for the.
So basically, a few years away from the Matrix at this point.
And I think that the way we should cast our vision is how all of these things that are advancing technologies coming into our workplace and how our roles evolving rather than being replaced. And I think that's that element of, I was at the conference recently and every HR leader presenting had this positive view of we're in control and we'll control exactly what AI does for us and we'll keep the fun things and the enjoyable things and we're going to move everything else into AI, everything that is repetitive or we don't enjoy, like washing dishes or anything else that will be required. But I think it's how clever are we using AI. So if you look at human intelligence, is how we're using AI to expand human intelligence. So I wouldn't say no in attaching 500 points to my IQ every single day to be able to do that and augment the type of work rather than just replacing it as a whole. And there's like a lot of wonderful predictions out there. Just pick them up with a grain of salt.
Every day. I saw one yesterday from McKinsey. It was like 80% of all HR tasks will be replaced by AI.
Brilliant.
Right.
That does not mean that we've run out of jobs. It means that our jobs are evolving into different directions as well. So there's this report that probably is like about 5 years old of future jobs. I think they've published some new ones from Cognizant. 5 years ago, we were already predicting that we'll have HR roles that will just deal with debiasing AI and technology. So whatever we're predicting now is only in that narrative. I think it's like a mix of dystopian and positive. I think it's very much in the eyes of the beholder. So if you're thinking about AI will completely replace you and you're not doing anything about it and everything that you're doing is controlling AI rather than actually using it and enabling it to drive transformation in your organization, you're likely to end up in the dystopian element. But if you're thinking about AI of what are the opportunities, what are the risks, how do we mitigate some of those risks, but we still fully enable the organization to drive value, you're shifting already into what skills do I need tomorrow for my HR teams? What about the day after tomorrow? What about the day after that? And how are we constantly evolving and can we keep up?
Yeah. And the reality is, like, some of the things that I've been speaking to HR leaders about for the last 20 years, they could only dream of doing that they can now with AI. You know, learning is a huge one around creating customizable learning pathways at scale that has context of the individual, truly meeting where they're at, like things like that. There's so many areas. Like we've seen obviously loads of the recruitment, the candidate experience and recruitment use cases that are coming through that are now freeing up recruiters to do more value add tasks, right? And actually having conversations. There's so many.
And it's an interesting unbalance in there because we've been using automation, almost like low-level AI and machine learning for years now.
It's been around for ages
in organizations. I've only seen now in the last few months with a lot of organizations trying to stop candidates from using AI in writing CVs. And
Yeah, that's a good point. They're using it too,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
and I'm like, it's gone there. It's like only fair. You've used it for years for candidates.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't candidates use it for the organization? And it's that element of have our practices in organizations evolved enough to allow us to still select the right candidates with the right skills to bring them in the
It's
organization.
going to be tough because like I've seen, I know we've got to wrap up soon, but I've seen like so many use cases now where you've got AI tools that will apply for 20 jobs for you. It will write a cover letter that's customized to every single one. So now companies within their ATS have got one person applying for 20 jobs, and all of a sudden they've got what was supposed to be a solution that would solve the problem is now an extra, even more of a headache because they've got 10x the CVs.
Yeah, and like the World Economic Forum conversation was, are we moving more and more into micro certifications and skills validation?
Yes,
That will replace CVs and
I think
hundreds of
it's going to
applications
have
that we're
to.
getting.
It's going to be there's a couple of new ATSs on the market now where basically they're flipping it around, where essentially you apply and you kind of create a profile and then it suggests jobs for you.
Yep.
So to stop you from basically just spamming and applying to everything.
Yeah. And there's other bits of like you're creating a profile and you're almost like interviewing and having a conversation with the AI that will then map your skills and ambitions beforehand. So there's like other things that are coming out there that we just need to understand what is the challenge, what's the best solution moving
It's going to be
forward.
fun. Well, it's a fun time to be in the profession.
Yeah, I think that the solution of blocking people from using it has never ever in the history of humankind.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, like, because the idea is you create your profile, kind of like LinkedIn. You got your skills, you update it, and then you're suggested. But I feel like people want to be in control, right? Because you kind of feel like you're at the mercy of the tool, and you're waiting for someone to tap on the shoulder. Which anyone who's worked in an organization who's been in that position where you're in a specific role and you can't move forward because you're waiting for that tap on the shoulder, that's very frustrating. We don't want to create that a digital version of that. So it's going to be interesting. Listen, before I let you go, we covered so much during the conversation, and like you said, you're on the journey. By no means is this there probably isn't an end destination. This is ongoing, ever evolving,
and we're keeping that agility. So we're building some brilliant basics. We're not making decisions for 2-3 years from now, but we're saying, wait, in 6 months times, I will come into your office, go into the CHRO's office and say, do we think we're ready for any of these things? Is it A, B, or C?
Love it.
Are we doing this type of things? Like how are we envisioning the future? And then how we're building enough flexibility into our roadmap today to give us the opportunity to
love that. So you have the sort of vision and just the strategy for the 3 to 5 years, but within that you've created an agile framework because you understand that the pace of change it's very rare you're going to be able to stick to that.
And that and that's the element, because the 5 years is not locked. It's principles based and it's ambition related. Of what type of organization do we want to be, and how do we envision that will work for us, and that allows us. So we're not like locking things to say we want GBS and that's the right decision for us 5 years from now. Therefore, how do we build everything? We said at some point in time we will need to make a decision of what that would look like. That is not today. It's not going to be in the next 3 years, just looking at how we're evolving. But how do we give ourselves the opportunity that in the future we will end up into making a decision around it?
Amazing. Well, Chip, it's always fun chatting with you. Almost like I was going to ask you for your parting piece of advice, but you've already shared so much great advice. What would be your parting piece of advice for people listening that are perhaps on a similar journey that you are right now? What advice would you give them? And then we'll say goodbye.
I think part of the advice that I'll leave people with is if we've learned everything about sort of fearless organizations and leading with fear, we've learned the opposite of how do you get curious about the world and you explore and you think about yourself of putting multiple different hats as an HR leader to test, prototype, understand, explore. some of the things that we're dealing with are maybe outside of our understanding today, but how do you get closer to that as an exploration? The staying away from leading with fear is what's gonna actually make organizations bloom into what we should be shaping them into, having a good balance of technology, humans, interesting and meaningful work for everyone.
I love that. Listen, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I think you're going to get a lot of questions after this one from our audience, but it was a pleasure.
Likewise.